Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next panel. We're going to talk about ranking an app in the charts. And today, with us for panelists, we have Sumio of SGN, we have Pavel Lando of Wargaming, we have James Peng of Storm8, and we have Shmuel Tannenhaus of Big Fish. So thanks, panelists, for being here. And before we talk about ranking an app, let's back up just a little bit. And does it always make sense to rank an app? Sumio?
Of course. I think that's an easy question to answer. Everyone's goal is probably to rank, because if you get rank, you get the natural exposure. And with that natural exposure, you get an even better organic lift from the user base, but also from different vendor sources that are like, hey, you guys are a top app. How can we help you stay there? So from both sides, getting users and also getting further distribution.
James, given the large cost of obtaining rankings in the App Store, does it always make sense to have an app rank? Are there certain times in a product life cycle that makes more sense?
Yeah, sure. So of course, it's always nice to be ranked and have visibility and get that sort of extra organic boost. But at Storm8, we have sort of a wide breadth of titles, all the way from sort of super casual to casino to mid-core, and we employ different strategies among each of these verticals. And so, whereas for a casual game, you can easily get sort of tens of thousands of downloads by being at the right rank. For games such as like mid-core, hardcore games, it might not make so much sense to sort of spend the amount of money that it takes to get an app up to there. So it all depends on sort of the inherent, sort of what it comes down to in terms of effective CPI versus what you're able to return. So I'd say you need to look at the type of app you're going to get, the type of user that you're going to get, and sort of react accordingly.
And Pavel,
I guess the same question. Yeah.
World of Tanks shot up out of nowhere and really nailed it back in June. So I think that strategy can be contrasted with maybe knowing the LTV of a user that comes from the App Store before you invest in bringing an app and really bringing it up the charts. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so basically I would like to support the message of my colleague. So definitely it's all about the ROI. So if you see that the investments in the user acquisition are just lucrative, and you can afford just paying for just top 5 or top 10 position, and it is lucrative. So in this case, you definitely make sense. If not, so you do not. Everything is about the LTV and about the amount of money you pay for just a fresh new user.
And Shmuel, what's your opinion?
Most of the time, I think ranking on the charts is a waste of money. Sorry to break it to everybody. Particularly, first of all, if you don't have any KPIs about your game, you're going to end up shooting to the top of the charts, God knows by what means, and you have no idea of the KPIs or the monetization of your title. And so before you even know how your game is going to perform, you have a bunch of people that you only have a chance to impress once, and then they'll go into your game and churn because you don't have any good monetization strategy. So I would start with saying that, first of all, if you do plan on ranking, I would wait until you have a fully fleshed out, mature product that you're going to be able to retain the people, because if you can't, the whole exercise is pointless. Second, if you have a finite budget, and I imagine most of us do because money is not infinite, when you start with launching a product, you're much better off taking 20,000 or 50,000 and spreading that across 5 or 10 different UA channels and understand what the LTV or the eCPI or the CTR is going to be across 10 channels. Whereas if you do a burst campaign, you really walk away with a lot of noise. You're getting cheap traffic, which is how you're driving yourself up the charts. So that's killing your overall retention metrics. Even if you have a way to segment the organic users versus the paid users, you still don't really know what's truly organic, what's not truly organic. And even if you really know who's organic, it's not like a paid channel where you can just go back and say, hey, organic network, I want to buy more users from you. There is no organic network. So you're going to have to keep doing a burst campaign. But if you do that with paid channels, you get to collect as much data as possible. And if you like the users from a particular channel, you can just go back and say, hey, we love your users. Send us more.
So assuming you have all your metrics, you know your KPIs, and you do want to take an app and bring it to the top of the charts, what tactics have worked in the past?
So you mean what actions actually perform good in terms of just reaching the first position on the charts or top positions?
Yeah, do you fire on all cylinders across all channels and bring it up as fast as possible?
Well, definitely when you have pretty cool featuring from Apple, this helps a lot. So you get pretty huge amounts of installs and automatically you boost the charts. The second point is simply just traffic acquisition. So if you purchase lots of installs, you're just boosted into the top. Then you have to think about your ratings because it influences as well. So you can just work with the audience in order to just at least persuade them to rate your application. Definitely it has to be very smooth and you cannot force them to do that, and the application has to be on a pretty good level. And you have to work with the retention and re-engagement. The session has to be pretty long enough. The number of sessions per day, per week has to be just appropriate enough. And this all causes the increase in the recharts. And actually no one knows the exact formula, the way it works, but like the precise actions, what should be done, they are obvious.
Can I take a stab? Okay. So I just wanted to give everybody an example just about something in terms of ranking. So Big Fish launched a game today called Cascade. Yes, you should download it right now. And I'll give you a link to my mobile marketing company so I get paid on a CPI. So if I use this great app that my friend told me about. It's called Appster. That will give you real-time rankings about where your app is on the charts, both free, grossing, category, and all. And Cascade right now on iPad is 41 in games in the US, 66 in Australia, 25 in Germany, 25 in Canada, 25 in the UK. We're ranking, so we did get featuring in the App Store, but even before featuring in the App Store, this game was ranked. And that's all with buying non-incent media. So that is the best strategy in my opinion, because you have a twofer. One, you get to buy qualified users, and two, all the organic users you get in addition from ranking is just frosting on the cupcake for people who like cupcakes.
I like cookies, cookie jam.
On to that. We also only pretty much focus on the higher quality channels. We very rarely run sort of burst traffic, and we like to focus on users that will continuously come back to our game. But one big part of our strategy is that we do sort of present our games to users within our network that like to play games and that we know are sort of valuable players to us. So over the past year, in 2013, we actually had sort of 24 games that reached the top 25 rank on iOS, and it wasn't, none of that was through burst incentivized traffic on iOS, and so that's simply by, sort of showing our new games that we believe that the mechanics are refined enough to sort of promote internally, and we'll essentially show our users, these new titles, and eventually, when it does get ranked, it'll take off, and the organic will play on its own.
Do you find the tactics have changed over the last, say, 12 or 24 months with different changes made to ranking algorithms?
Well, actually, it's difficult to say for us because this is our first mobile product that we actually have just released about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, so we were not tracking the just changes in the App Store algorithms. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they are changing. They're trying to adopt it to a more like fair scheme. I mean, not to be so easy to be manipulated. Actually, it's doubtful the level of manipulation is still on high scale in comparison with, for example, Androids. Yeah, but nevertheless, they're working on that. So you have to be very careful and very fair with the traffic you purchase.
And what about App Store optimization? James, is that something that you put a lot of time into?
App Store optimization is really crucial for StormA. We have a very sort of rigorous process that we test games before they, right when we concept them and through the game development, we're always sort of optimizing everything from the icon, screenshots, description to make sure that we really make sure that the users have a really good idea of what they're going to get before they actually play the game. I feel like ASO is one of the best things you can actually do because it really opens up the most core part of the funnel. Like you may spend a lot of time on CTR optimization, creatives, making sure you get the most sort of, I would say, appealing creative. But if you don't have a good landing page and a good sort of optimize that final piece of it, you're really not going to sort of maximize your value and your eCPM. So why not spend a lot of time sort of opening up that conversion rate when it impacts not only ad users but also organic users as well.
Sumi?
Yeah, I would echo that because when you manipulate the conversion lever, it has a higher impact downstream. Like it's great to have high CTRs and high conversion rate, but if you can increase the conversion rate, it's going to be far more impactful. Like if you increase the conversion rate 0.1% or 0.01, it has a bigger impact than increasing the CTR by that same metric. So I completely agree that App Store optimization is super important. It is a little bit more cumbersome in mobile because your landing page is not at your mercy, it's to the mercy of the store. So when you do your App Store optimization, it should be a well thought out process since it's gonna coincide with a submission. So I would just say fully try to bake out your tests and then try to really determine what in that App Store optimization you're trying to optimize against because again, you're at the mercy of the stores.
And I'll put some data behind that. For example, for a specific title, spend some time tweaking, optimizing the creatives for one of my channels. Ended up increasing the click-through rate by about like 0.2%. That increased the sort of volume from that particular channel by about 30%, which is substantial. But then on another separate test, spend a good amount of time improving the App Store optimization, improving the landing page, and the resulting download volume from all channels, including organic, was an increase sort of 40 to 50%. So super high leverage to do this.
And you can optimize on the App Store for both keyword searches and for conversion rate. Shmuel, do you have a preference or what's your strategy there?
I have no strategy. ASO does not sit in the UA group at Big Fish. It sits in our social team. In general, the stuff that we focus on is very fast iteration with things that involve spending money and hopefully making the money back. ASO is much more of a long tail thing. One of the other challenges with ASO versus something like SEO is that none of the app stores give you a report to tell you which keywords are converting. You can track users who are coming from a specific keyword. And so there really is no data piece behind it, which if there were, it probably would live more in the UA. I do know at Big Fish we definitely do ASO, and it's important, but it's not a key driver at this point for user acquisition.
Pavel, what's the strategy for wargaming as far as App Store optimization goes?
Well, as Shmuel mentioned, so the major problem is that you cannot split traffic in just connection to the particular keywords. It's completely different from the classic SEO we see on the web. In this case, you're trying your best in order to just get the relevant keywords using any kind of data you have. For example, even using the data from the desktop, because we know the type of the user we would like to acquire and we know the semantic core they're looking for. This is the only thing you can do. Just try to optimize it like very, very, very roughly. And in terms of like conversion rate and so on and so forth, I can see no conflict in there. So you can both optimize the keywords in order to rank high on the particular relevant keywords, and you can optimize everything that is like makes a landing page in the App Store. The icon, the screenshots, the description, and so on and so forth. So title is important. Everything is important. So you have to do both.
I just want to say, in terms of conversion, the one thing we have seen in our group that has a big impact on conversion rate is the actual creative that they come through. You wouldn't necessarily think that, because once you're on the page, what difference does it make? But I think it has a lot to do with the mindset that people come and go to an App Store page, and sort of the message that you're giving them when they click on a creative. And it's happens very quickly, and if their expectations doesn't match, or they're not getting, or something is inconsistent, we're going to see a lower conversion rate. And so we've seen that when we test different creatives, it's not just a difference in click-through rate, but you can have a difference in conversion rate by 100% just based on the creative that they're coming through.
Yeah, I think it's just important to echo that everything always comes down to an effective CPI. It's a blend of metrics that you have to test against and optimize to.
And as far as channels go for user acquisition, there's channels that are opening up now that are a little more difficult to measure: television, influencer campaigns, things like that. Sumi, have you used any channels like that before?
So because we are very data-driven, the influencer campaigns were a little bit harder for us to, really get behind, because the tracking isn't there. It's a measurement of organic lift, and because we buy so much media right now, to really attribute that small amount of organic lift is impossible. Television is probably likely different, and Shmuel can talk about that. So we did do some small tests, but we probably won't be testing out anytime soon unless we can get some exact tracking to be able to say, like, this actually caused Y.
Pavel, would you like to speak on channels other than non-standard digital channels?
Sorry, one comment regarding the TV. Yeah. So basically, we're in wargaming. We're small cheaters here because we've got a pretty huge budget for our desktop projects, and we can add our iOS projects into this type of creative. And in terms of tracking, yeah, definitely, it's all about the budget. So if the budget is small enough, you won't see any lift in organic installs, and you will see nothing. Definitely, you can try to use the tracking URL and to track like the direct acquisition. It is possible. You can create a custom landing page for the mobile device and to drive the traffic directly through this tracking URL to the App Store landing page. Yeah. But definitely, in most cases, it is hard to track if you've got lots of additional offline marketing activities, because we've got a huge emphasis on PR, events, and so on and so forth, and usually everything is mixed. So you have to track everything in complex. Unfortunately, in terms of TV, it's the same. Yeah.
James, have you used influencer campaigns or television before?
So we've tested some of these things on the side, and what it comes down to is we spend a lot of time trying to measure and isolate these instances, like a certain time on a weekend or something, trying to understand what that real lift is. And the bottom line is, I think this is really suitable for when you're trying to build a brand and a lot of these things around it. And right now, I'm still heavily focused, along with a lot of that performance community, just heavily focused on the bottom line ROI. And even though you can spend a lot of time trying to measure that sort of additional bump, I'm just spending my incremental time focused on sort of what I can measure exactly and what I can track and put a tracking link behind, and sort of attribute revenue to directly. So I've sort of found the incremental time more useful for direct performance.
What about at Big Fish Games?
So first of all, I did run one influencer campaign on Vine. I tracked probably no installs, and PR made me take down 3 of the videos. With most of my other initiatives, it was a smashing success. I define success as if I'm still working there, successful. If anybody wants to get in touch with the company that does the influencer campaigns, just let me know. I'm an influence of theirs, I guess. I've heard from them and from people who have used their products that they have seen success. Now, I don't know if the App Annie screenshot they sent me was photoshopped or not. And I also don't know if the person I was speaking to at the other company was a paid model working for them. So much unknown in the mobile space, it's crazy. The challenge that we had on the social media campaign is that the demographic is 13 to 18 years old. This was on Vine. So most people who have parents, my guess is your parents do not have a Vine app on their devices. They probably don't even know what Vine is. It's very young audience, and it was just not a demographic fit for our game. But if you are, I guess, adhering to COPA laws, and you have a game that targets a demographic that doesn't have any money, that's a great channel to use. The other thing is that we have done TV. Big Fish does TV campaigns. We spend a nice amount of money on that, and we rolled it out. It was a limited budget. Was hoping it wasn't going to work out because it was run by a different department. Unfortunately, it's looking like it's performing well, and they continue to do more there. The tracking is definitely not an easy thing to do. Tracking is usually a complicated thing as it is, thanks to, again, people are shopping in a third-party store that you don't even have any attribution if it wasn't for some amazing attribution companies. But yes, we have been able to measure performance on TV campaigns, and it's been a lot more cost-effective than some of the other tests I've done, to the point where we are continuing to do that and investing more in doing that.
To speak on the demographic of younger users that you mentioned earlier with no money, does the monetization of a game play into the value of those users, whether it's in-app purchasers versus something like in-app ads or something like that?
I don't know. I would imagine people that don't have any money to spend in a game are probably good people to generate revenue off of advertising, because that's the only way you're going to generate any revenue from people without any money. So, I actually did hear from, I was talking to a monetization company, lots of monetization companies out there, and they were telling me they even have whales within the monetization world. So you have whales for IAP. You actually have whales within the monetization world. These are people who just like watching video ads. And literally people are looking to target and find people who like to watch ads for bounty and very interesting household products and other game trailers. But I just found it was fascinating that they were applying similar metrics as people would to IAP for monetization on ads.
And to speak on incentivized traffic, there's been some recent changes to rules that Apple's made, or maybe less so changes and more enforcement. Where do you see things going with incentivized traffic over the next 12 months, Sumi?
I think there's a value to incentivize. Going back to what everyone's echoing is you kind of get what you pay for, so you need to be able to figure out what it is you can pay for an incentivized channel and then realize the value that you're going to get from it. And usually people use incentivized channels for burst campaigns. And to be fair, we've had some success with the burst campaign. We're not quite as big as my counterparts here, so us getting ranked has a little bit different impact. We get the exposure that we need. We can do press releases around it, being like, hey, we're a top whatever app, and like I alluded to before, get distribution partners. I think, to be fair, with cost per completed view type traffic, it is on the spectrum of incentivized to non-incentivized. So I think that's a really valuable source. Pure incentivized is exactly what it is. It's purely incentivized. It's not going to be the greatest quality of traffic, but again, if you can attribute what you can pay for that, maybe you have a K factor, even with incentivized traffic. For every incent that you pay for, you'll acquire X percent of another. So really, I would just say, get the data that you need to be able to figure out the best cost-effective way to utilize that source of traffic. I think it's going to be around for a while. We talked about how Android kind of already de-incentivizes you to not use incentive, because anecdotally I've heard that their rankings will ding you for uninstalls. And so I think Apple is trying to go that direction because they don't like the App Store manipulation, but it's all to be determined.
Pavel, where do you see incentivized traffic in 12 months?
Well, actually, unfortunately or fortunately, right now incentivized traffic is still efficient. but it depends on the way you just work with this incentivized traffic. So first, you can just work not only based on the CPI model, I mean just paying only for installs. It works as well, but you can use it only for just bursting your just rankings in the charts. But you can choose the relatively deep in-game events and pay for this kind of incentivized traffic. And if the in-game events is chosen based on the good analytics, so the overall results may be the same as with the non-incentivized traffic, but cheaper. So it's all about the provider of this traffic, it's all about the way you work with it, and it's all about the way you optimize. But yes, it is still important, and it is still efficient to use it.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say that I think incentive from a re-engagement standpoint, especially if you're incentivizing your users to come back with your own currency or something, is, I don't label that necessarily in the same bucket as acquisition. So, but I mean, incentives as they exist are going to continue. I mean, they're not going to go away anytime soon.
James, do you see incentivized traffic having a role outside of pushing an app up the ranks?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you see incentivized traffic having a role outside of pushing an app up the ranks?
Outside of pushing your app up the ranks, I do think it is possible to sort of incentivize on an ROI positive basis, as Sumi mentioned. Like, again, there is sort of an effect of that. I do think that it is going to change, and the role of an industry will change over time. And I think both of the platforms are approaching it a little differently. Like Apple's obviously sort of, usually enforcing rules to change that, whereas Google lets the sort of system decide for itself with some sort of algorithm change. So there's different approaches, but overall, I think it just implies a flight to quality, and that's sort of how we're adjusting our buys too. We're just going towards the channels that do yield the highest quality users that actually do want to play the games. The issue is that with incentivized, it is what it sounds like. You're getting users to do something that they don't really want to do. They're doing it because they get something. So I think there is a benefit in the past, but overall it's just going to self-filter, and I think the writing's on the wall with sort of where that's going to go in the future. So there's always going to be some publishers that will try to make money from that in the near term, but in the long term, you don't know.
Shmuel, do you see incentivized traffic, the value of that kind of a channel decreasing over time? And is it across both Apple as well as Google, or is it unique to one of the platforms?
So I see incentivized traffic as in 12 months from now being bigger and stronger, but let's define what I mean by incentivized. So you can have an incentive where user gets something to install, but then you have a more popular incentivized channel, sort of like the ad colonies or Vungles of the world, where a user earns currency from watching a video and then the install is not incentivized. And so not all incent channels in general are created equal, but even within incent, I mean, there are certain ways where, again, I can't imagine Apple or Google having any issue with somebody getting an incentive to watch a video and help a publisher monetize their game. And at the same time, you can actually get qualified users from there. And as the ecosystem grows, and there are networks that continue to roll out video, and we only see ourselves doing more and more video, and I can't imagine that trend stopping anytime soon.
I do think that, regarding what you just said, Shmuel, that the platforms do sort of want a cut of this. I think that they're making money, and I think that there may be an incentive to try to get a piece of that, like some sort of platform fee. And they're not getting that through, these methods, through that incentivized message. So I'm not sure if that's going to grow. And we saw that recently with sort of the, incentivized video snafu on iOS. So, I'm not sure where the future of that is either. But my personal opinion is it's not accelerating, I think.
Sumi, what advice do you have for app marketers who want to take their app to the top of the charts?
To be perfectly blunt, I get asked this all the time just from even my friends that have personally developed apps. And to be fair, you should have a really good baked product. There's no reason you need to get it to market, really, do any active marketing with a product that isn't fully baked. And I mean, have a clear monetization strategy, figure out, hopefully you scope out what you can pay for a user because you think they'll monetize X, Y, or Z, or you'll be able to retain them for 90, 120, 30 days and have that many opportunities to monetize them, whether it be through advertising or in-app purchase. I have to say, you have to have money. Like you have to have a pretty robust marketing budget. Everybody wants to be Flappy Bird, and I don't even know if that's real, but like you have to have money. It's a sad but true statement. To get ranked, you have to have a good budget, but hopefully you're doing it in a nice, direct response, cost-effective way, so that you're de-risking yourself. So have lots of data. Have the tools that you need to show attribution, to show all kind of performance downstream metrics to give you the best foot forward. And good product. It all comes down to a good game. Good art, good product, usefulness, and then you'll get a natural K factor, virality coefficient.
Flappy Bird isn't real?
I don't know.
Pavel, what advice do you have for app marketers who want to take their app right up the ranks?
Well, like this kind of advice are simple, like, hey guys, pay taxes, don't forget to clean your teeth, and so on and so forth. So basically you have to perform numerous number of activities all together, all interacted, in order to try to achieve the best results, trying to spend less money. Unfortunately, the reality is the following, that without the budget, it's in most cases very difficult to hit the top of the charts. You cannot just wait for the miracle, which has happened with Flappy Birds, for example, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but the vital point here is that you have to have a strong product. So it has to be strong. Without this part of the formula, it will be very difficult. You will spoil too much money in order to gain the results. The positions in the chart and so on and so forth, which won't give you the financial feedback. Yeah, so this is pretty simple. Have a good product and just plan your campaigns on a high level and spend enough money.
James?
Yeah, so I'll echo a couple of these. One, two, like have a good product, have the budget. But the third one I'm going to add in is sort of don't fall for something that sounds too good to be true. If someone like guarantees you a certain rank, just like don't, like I would just urge you. That's definitely, even if it works for like one time, just don't even, I wouldn't bother, because it's going to be, you need something that's sustainable, that's gonna be a business. It's gonna make you money. So any sort of get rich quick schemes, like try to avoid these.
Shmuel?
Advice I would give to somebody who wants to burst:
Get ranked.
don't do it. Call my cell, 917-406-5088. I'll talk you off a ledge. But if you're not going to listen to me and I can't convince you, here's what I would tell you to do. Do not burst your campaign for the first time when you launch worldwide. It's a really dumb idea. Just like you test a product in a beta country, test a burst campaign in a beta country. And instead of spending $100,000 to do it, spend $2,000 to do that. To start understanding, again, what it's going to cost you, and start extrapolating, if you're in a much larger market, what that's going to do for you. Also, really understand your KPIs. If an organic user for you is going to be worth less than what a paying user is worth to you, what's the point unless you can get a ton more organic users? So getting a real understanding before you do anything about your KPIs. What is a organic user worth on iPhone and on iPad? Because as you know, same thing with Android, but there is no iPhone and iPad for Android. It's just one thing. It's amazing. There's no iPhone or iPad for Android. It's just one thing. It's incredible. It's just dawned upon me. No, there's no tablet or smartphone. But when you're going to do it on iOS, if you're going to do a burst campaign, you got to think about the two devices that you have. You have iPhone and iPad, and so you want to do it the most cost-effective way. iPad's going to be cheaper. You're going to need less installs to do it, but there's less supply as a result, and so it's going to be more expensive to you. So really understanding your KPIs by device, by paying user channel during your whole beta period, and then when you're ready to go to market, I would highly suggest using some of the video ad networks that have a ton of inventory for good videos when they're ready. And so people ask about trailers, and people don't have a professional way to make a trailer, but if a trailer, a professional looking trailer that costs $1,000 can help increase your conversion rate by 25%, and you're spending $10,000, you just made your money back in a good trailer. And so I would not undermine the importance on spending money on good creative, because you'll make your money back in spades. The last thing I would do is, if you're planning for a burst, don't just go to a handful of networks and say, hey, I want to get here, without really understanding what your cost is going to be. Understand what it's going to take for you to rank. Which category do you want to rank in? Which chart do you want to rank in? Look in App Annie. How many installs do you need to be on this day, in this chart, on this device? And based on that, build yourself a plan. Once you have a plan, call me, and I'll talk you out of it.
I think too, just because since we are so focused on direct response, there are the other channels, and I don't personally handle them at SGN, but if you are able to get a feature from any of the stores, whether it be top new game, editor pick, best update, in any part of the store, whether it's under a subcategory of games or whatever on the main page, that is obviously very, 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 very helpful, and I have no idea how it happens, but if you can do it, I would recommend it. And obviously do the traditional channels of like PR outreach to gamers, YouTube influencers, even though to do some the natural stuff, and definitely have all your social media and things baked out as well, so that people who do download the game and want to be mavens or evangelists of it, you kind of get that naturally, and those things are free, so you should just have them ready to go.
Awesome. Let's take it to the audience for some questions.
I'd like to hear how you think about international from two perspectives. One is the market entry of the app itself, and then second is the marketing strategy. And specifically, when you go into new markets that are not English language markets, do you localize or do you test first and see what you get organically from people coming from other countries into the US markets or the English language stores to buy, and then localize from there, or do you specifically target certain countries? And then on the advertising side, going back to the morning panel session where they were talking about kind of global marketing strategies, whether you control that from the head office or whether you execute it locally.
So we maybe first. Okay. So we are mostly focused on just managing all the campaigns from one place, from the head office. So this gives us more flexibility in terms of like testing and changing our strategy. So definitely it's all about the numerous number of iterations and tests. So you have to collect the data from all the regions, invest in a limited amount of money, then understand all the KPIs that you can afford in order to buy this traffic. I mean the lifetime, the RPU and lifetime value of the results, and so on and so forth, the different type of channels, different type of devices, what converts good and what not, and then you do everything from one single place. This is much more convenient. This is our strategy. In terms of localization, so first you just localize everything based on the experience we already have, so like major languages, and then if we see that the statistics are pretty good in the particular region and we do not have localization there, we can invest some amount of money in order to localize this and then test the localization version. Sometimes it doesn't work. For example, in Scandinavia, lots of people convert pretty good in English, and there is no sense into localizing the native languages. But in some places, it is vital to localize, in Asia, for example. So it all depends on the current data you get. It all depends on the tests. I hope I've answered the question.
Got another one? Hi, guys. My name is Chris from Liquid Wireless. This is sort of a very pragmatic question, but I notice that the landing page, some of the partners that I work with, well-known apps high up in the ranks, I look at the landing page and it just falls flat. It seems like there could be a lot more focus on the icon and what does the icon do to the user and their conversion rates as well as the copy. Do you guys have any systems or partners that you use to optimize those landing pages? And then do you see over time, a change in that landing page performance? Does it get stale or anything like that?
I mean, internally, we have our own team that's been doing it ever since, over the past 5 years, so we don't outsource that, but we do have developed a very rigorous process, sort of A, B, C, D, E testing icons, and the screenshots until we understand sort of what works best. Usually you can do so through, if you want to, you can do so through like, CTR tests, and you can often just, pay for this. You can do surveys, but internally we have a pretty robust method and sort of timeline in doing this.
So we don't have I think there's a lot of room for improvement in the way we do things today. But one of the things we do, and it's pretty cheap, is run a banner campaign using the different icon ideas that you want to use. And then for $1,000, you'll have lots of impression data to tell you what has the highest click-through rate and what has the highest conversion rate. And they take that and make an icon out of it.
Hi, as you tweak and tune campaigns when you first launch them, are there KPIs you pay attention to that you can get from a campaign in the first 2 or 3 days that help you decide what users are going to monetize better down the road? I mean, because RPU is a great metric, but it might take you a month or two to get there. So,
Are you looking for marketing KPIs?
when you launch a campaign, how do you know that the campaign is getting the right set of people? What beyond install? What other what are the short-term
You mean when
indicators?
you do not yet have the data in order to calculate lifetime value? Did I get it right?
Sorry, I didn't understand you.
When you do not have enough data in order to calculate lifetime value in the beginning of the campaign.
Correct.
So one thing to look at is your retention rate, right? What percentages of the users are coming back the day after they install the app? What percentage of those users are coming back on day 7? And that should give you a pretty quick understanding within 24 or 48 hours as to whether these users are interested in the game or not. That's probably the fastest thing to do.
Hi everyone. I have a quick question. How much do you think of, using obviously a lot of acquisition channels, how much do you think of the budget you're spending? You have absolutely no idea where your ads are running or how your ads are running. In other words, do you have viewability or transparency or guarantee of transparency of how your ads are delivered on 100% of your spending? Or do you just happen sometime to stumble across an ad that happens to be for your app and you have no idea why it's there? Someone made a creative that you've not approved and that happened to be on a page, you have no idea what it is.
So first of all, get used to it. That's the first thing I advise you to. The second thing is you don't necessarily have to work with 50 different networks and each of those networks with another 50 networks, and then you have no idea what your banners are doing at night after 9 o'clock. If you have a very small and short list of where your users are coming from, and my guess is if anybody looks at their UA channels, start looking at where are 80% of the users coming from, my guess is it's not going to be that large of a list. And so the more you start narrowing down the networks that you work with and start focusing less on blind networks and more on transparent networks, less of an issue you're going to have. Today, though, there are some great networks that have full transparency, and if that's concerning to you about not having transparency, you can just focus on the channels where you do get 100% understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, you can layer in a protection too by telling those networks that they're not allowed to rebroker, so their publishers aren't allowed to go to their sub-publishers.
Yeah, because they always listen.
Well, I mean, exactly. You're going to have to get used to it. It's an affiliate marketing channel, and it is kind of like the Wild Wild West, but hopefully you have the metrics, like he was saying, you can look at day 1 retention rate, and hopefully you're getting back past a sub ID, an affiliate ID, a pub ID, something that tells you the subsources of the networks. And then by looking at the subsources and their individual downstream metrics, personally we use retention rate, like he was saying, day 1, day 7. Day 1 is usually a really good indicator for us of where the traffic will be. We have enough data to say that anything under X% is very similar to incentive. I'm not saying it is incentive, but the traffic's similar, so I can only pay this much. But if it's in anywhere in this range where I know that most of our users fall, like a quote-unquote quality user, I'll let my publishers know immediately, like, hey, pub 123 has a really low day one retention rate. We need to keep an eye on them, or I'll just say turn it off. But you can definitely layer in that protection. Tell your networks no brokering and no third party. Again, it is the wild west, but hopefully most of the networks I've had have been really great about transparency and turning things on or off. And ultimately you might not have to pay for it if it's shady traffic.
And who really cares? Not about everything, just about where your traffic is coming from. You should really just be concerned about the performance of the campaign. If the performance sucks, even if you know who it's coming from, it doesn't make a difference. That's even worse. Like, you know where it's coming from. They're doing it to your face. And if the performance is good, who really cares where they're coming from? So I guess a lot of it has to do with the quality of the user.
And in order to, final point, just be ready that you are gonna be cheated. This is like inevitable evil. But everything is about the performance, about the results. Even by splitting in a numerous numbers of sub-IDs, the traffic can be mixed. And all in all, you will get pretty good results. But the certain percentage will be not the traffic that you would like to have. But nevertheless, it's all about the overall result, as Shmuel said. So just get used to it.
Hi, my name is Matthias from Krobo. One question, we talked a lot about knowing your KPIs and knowing your performance and what you have to cover, what you have to look at when you run performance campaigns. Realistically, out of my day-to-day business, we often have, we're in performance ad platform for games. And what we often have the trouble that most of our clients, by now, we kind of teach them and pushing back the feedback for the campaigns within a day or within 3 days. But how do you actually take care of giving the information and the KPIs back to your performance partner in order for them to actually know what they have to optimize on?
Post-install events. Post-install events. So
post-back
install
events.
You never believe.
That's true. I take that back. Post-back install events. So if you're trying to optimize for installs, then you send them install information. If you're trying to optimize for good users, then send them information that tells them if they're a good user or not. That way you don't even have to rely on your partner to send it back to you. You have amazing companies like AdX or Kachava that will send it back to them. Apps Flyer.
Keep it going.
Are there any more audience questions?
I think we got to wrap it up.
Okay, great. Well, Sumi, Pavel, James, and Shmuel, thank you very much for being here. And thank you, As Offers.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.